You asked God to make you strong. You prayed for faith that could move mountains. You wanted endurance, courage, and power to stand firm when life gets hard. And then, life did get hard. Suddenly, the mountain didn't move. It grew taller. The path didn't get easier. It got darker. The people you counted on walked away. The doors you prayed would open slammed shut, and you began to wonder, God, did you hear me at all? But what if that struggle was His answer all along? What if God doesn't hand you strength? He builds it in you. When you go to the gym and lift weights, it's the resistance that strengthens your muscles. The pain is not punishment, it's the process. And in the same way, when God allows struggles, He's not trying to break you down. He's preparing you for something greater. Every struggle you face is not an accident. It's part of a divine training ground designed to build the strength you once prayed for. You see, when we ask God for strength, we often imagine Him pouring it into us instantly, like filling an empty cup. But that's not how God works. He doesn't just hand out strength. He develops it within us. And the only way to develop strength is through resistance, through pressure, through struggle. Think about it. No athlete ever becomes strong by sitting on the sidelines. No warrior ever learns courage by hiding from battle. And no believer ever becomes spiritually mature by living a life free from trials. God knows that comfort never grows character. Comfort may feel good, but it never builds you. It's the weight you lift, the burden you bear, and the mountain you climb that give your spirit its shape. That's why God allows difficulties, not because He's cruel, but because He's intentional. Every challenge you face is like a personal gym session for your soul. Every tear, every disappointment, every setback, it's all resistance training. And just like physical muscles grow when they're stretched and strained, your faith muscles grow when life pushes against you. You can't become strong in theory. You become strong through endurance. When God puts you in the middle of a struggle, He's not trying to destroy you. He's trying to train you. He's saying, you asked for strength, so here's the situation that will require it. You asked for patience, so here's the season where you'll have to wait. You asked for courage, so here's a moment that will test it. God doesn't send strength as a gift wrapped in comfort. He sends it disguised as struggle, because He knows that growth and ease can't live in the same place. Sometimes when life gets hard, we cry out, Lord, where are you? And the truth is, He's right there, working through the very thing that hurts you. He's standing beside you as you carry that heavy weight. He's watching as your faith trembles, as your heart breaks. And He's whispering, keep going. You're becoming who I called you to be. Look at the great men and women of faith. None of them became strong in peaceful times. David didn't learn courage while tending sheep. He learned it while facing lions, bears, and eventually Goliath. Joseph didn't learn leadership in his father's house. He learned it in a pit, in prison, in pain. Daniel didn't find faith and comfort. He found it in the lion's den. Paul didn't find boldness in safety. He found it in persecution, in chains, and in suffering. The pattern is clear. God uses hardship as holy training. Every moment of pain has purpose behind it. It's not punishment, it's preparation. He's building something inside you that can't be formed in comfort. Resilience, faith, perseverance, and maturity. You don't become strong by avoiding pain, you become strong by walking through it with God. So when you face struggles, don't see them as proof that God is silent. See them as evidence that He's working. The struggle itself is a sign that He's investing in you, because God doesn't waste energy on what He doesn't intend to use. If He's allowing resistance, it's because He sees a greater version of you on the other side. You might feel like you're being broken, but in reality, you're being built. You might feel like you're losing, but you're actually learning. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that the seasons you wanted to skip were the same seasons that made you strong enough to stand. That's why your struggles matter, because they are God's training ground. Every hardship you endure is heaven's workshop, shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more faithful than you were before. So don't despise the weight you're carrying, embrace it, because the God who allowed the struggle is the same God who's standing beside you through it. And when you finally emerge, you'll realize you didn't just survive the training, you were strengthened by it. We often pray for God to take away our problems, to make life smoother, to remove the obstacles that seem too heavy to carry. But what if God doesn't answer by removing the struggle? What if He answers by giving us the strength to walk through it? You see, God rarely answers through relief, He often answers through resistance. He knows that if He removes every hardship, He would also remove the opportunity for our faith to grow. And so, instead of taking away the fire, He steps into it with us. When we ask God for deliverance, our human nature expects an instant escape. We want the Red Sea to part immediately. But God doesn't always part the waters right away. Sometimes He teaches us to walk on them. Because faith isn't just about escaping hard seasons, it's about enduring them with trust. When we ask Him for peace, He might allow chaos so that we can learn that true peace isn't found in the absence of trouble, but in the presence of trust. Imagine a child learning to walk. A loving parent doesn't carry the child every step of the way. They let them stumble, fall, and rise again. Not because they enjoy watching them struggle, but because that's how strength is formed. God works the same way with us. He could easily lift every burden from our shoulders, but if He did, we'd never learn to carry anything. We'd stay spiritually fragile, unable to stand when life gets real. So when God allows resistance, He's not being cruel. He's being kind in a way we may not yet understand. He's saying, you wanted to grow. This is how growth happens. The resistance you're feeling today is the very thing that's shaping your faith tomorrow. Every unanswered prayer, every closed door, every long wait, it's all a tool in God's hands to mold you into someone stronger, wiser, and more dependent on Him. If you think about it, even Jesus Himself faced resistance. In the Garden of Gethsemane, He prayed, "Father, if it's possible, take this cup from me." Yet the cup wasn't taken away. God didn't remove the cross. He gave Jesus the strength to bear it, because there was something greater waiting on the other side: resurrection. That same pattern happens in our lives too. When God doesn't remove the cross, it's because He's preparing a resurrection moment for you, something powerful that could only come through endurance. Sometimes the very thing you're asking God to take away is the thing He's using to build your spiritual backbone. He knows the storm that frightens you is the same storm that will teach you to trust His voice. If He removed it too early, you'd lose the very lesson He wants you to learn. You wouldn't know His faithfulness in the fire. You wouldn't experience His presence in the pain. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must push through the soil, fight against pressure, darkness, and weight. But that resistance is what makes it strong enough to stand in the sunlight. You are that seed. And every bit of pressure in your life is God's way of preparing you to grow higher than you ever thought possible. So the next time you pray and nothing seems to change, don't assume that God is ignoring you. He may already be answering you, just not the way you expected. You asked for strength and He gave you resistance. You asked for patience and He gave you delay. You asked for faith and He gave you uncertainty. Because the only way to build these things is to live through them. That's why you shouldn't mistake resistance for rejection. God's silence is not His absence. His delay is not denial. His resistance is His response. It's His way of saying, I'm still working. Keep walking. So when life gets hard and you feel like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, remember this: God's goal is not to make life easier, but to make you stronger. He's not trying to keep you comfortable. He's trying to make you capable. He's not withholding his blessing. He's deepening your faith. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that the resistance you resented was the very answer to your prayer. Because through every struggle, every test, and every tear, God was saying, I'm not removing it, I'm using it. Pain has a strange way of revealing what comfort keeps hidden. When life is easy, we tend to believe our faith is strong, our trust in God is deep, and our hearts are steady. But when the ground shakes, when everything we've built starts to crumble, that's when the truth rises to the surface. Pain exposes the foundation of our faith, whether it's built on sand or on stone. You see, when we live in comfort, we don't often question ourselves, we feel in control. We pray out of habit, not desperation. We thank God when things go right, but we rarely depend on Him when everything feels safe. Comfort creates an illusion that we are strong. But pain strips that illusion away. It takes away the mask of self-sufficiency and forces us to face who we really are. It's in pain that you discover what you truly believe. It's easy to say, God is good when life is good. But can you still say it when everything falls apart? It's easy to sing praises when the sun is shining. But can you still lift your hands when the storm won't stop? Pain reveals whether our faith is built on feelings or on truth. It separates the surface believer from the surrendered one. Think of Job, a man who had everything and lost it all. His wealth, his health, his family. And yet, in the ashes, he didn't curse God. He said, "The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." Pain exposed the depth of Job's faith. It didn't weaken it. It revealed it. Sometimes God allows pain not to test our strength, but to reveal. He already knows what's inside of us, but we don't. Pain becomes the mirror that shows us the real condition of our heart. When you're in comfort, you can pretend that you trust God. But when you're in crisis, you can't fake it anymore. The fire of pain burns away pretense. It shows whether you rely on God's promises or your own plans, whether your hope rests in His word or in your circumstances. Pain is the great revealer. It uncovers idols, dependencies, and distractions we didn't even know existed. Sometimes, God uses pain to pull our attention back to Him. When everything's going right, we often drift. We start depending on our bank account, our relationships, our abilities. But when pain hits, suddenly we realize how fragile all of that really is. Suddenly we fall to our knees and remember the one who never fails. Pain recenters us. It reintroduces us to our dependence on God. It humbles us and teaches us that every breath, every blessing, every moment, it all comes from Him. It's also in pain that God purifies our motives. When everything's stripped away, we learn why we truly follow Him. Do we love Him because of what He gives us or simply because of who He is? That's a hard question, but it's one every believer must face. Pain asks it loud and clear, and those who pass that test come out of it with a faith that cannot be shaken, because it's not built on blessings, it's built on trust. Pain also produces empathy. It softens our hearts and makes us more like Christ. Before pain, we may have sympathy. After pain, we gain compassion. We begin to understand others' suffering in a way comfort never could teach us. Pain shapes our character to reflect the heart of Jesus, humble, merciful, and kind. So if you're in a season of pain right now, don't assume God has abandoned you. He may be showing you something you could never see in peace. Maybe He's revealing strength you didn't know you had. Maybe He's drawing you closer to Him, refining you, deepening you. The pain that feels like it's breaking you might actually be the thing that's building you. Because pain doesn't just reveal weakness, it reveals truth. And truth is what sets you free. Pain shows you who you are, but it also reminds you of who God is, your healer, your comforter, your refuge. In comfort, you might forget that. But in pain, you remember that He's all you have and that He's all you need. True strength doesn't begin when you fight harder. It begins when you finally surrender. The greatest mistake we make is thinking that we can handle everything on our own. We tell ourselves, I've got this, I'm strong enough, I can push through, but sooner or later, life will bring you to a place where your own strength runs out. And when that happens, you realize that real strength isn't found in self-reliance, it's found in dependence on God. God never designed you to carry everything alone. Yet so often we try. We exhaust ourselves trying to fix things, control people, change outcomes, and manage what was never meant to be managed by human hands. And when things fall apart, we blame ourselves, thinking we're not strong enough. But what if that's the point? What if God allows the breaking to show us that we were never meant to be our own savior? Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means saying, God, I don't have the answers, but you do. I don't know how to fix this, but I trust that you will. That kind of surrender doesn't weaken you, it releases you. Because when you stop trying to control everything, you create space for God to move. You make room for His power to replace your pressure, His wisdom to replace your worry, and His plan to replace your panic. When you finally reach the end of yourself, that's where the beginning of God's strength begins. His power is made perfect in weakness, not in pride, not in performance, not in perfection. In weakness. When Paul begged God to remove the thorn from his flesh, God didn't take it away. Instead, he said, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my strength is made perfect in weakness." In other words, God was saying, Paul, I'm not going to take it away because I'm using it to show you something deeper. That my power works best when you stop pretending you have your own. That's why surrender isn't a loss. It's a victory. The world tells you to never quit, to never let go. But God says, let go so I can take over. Because the moment you stop holding everything together in your own hands is the moment He starts holding you together in His. Think of a child holding their father's hand. The child doesn't have to be strong enough to face what's ahead. They just need to hold on. The Father's strength carries them through. That's exactly how it is with God. He's not asking you to be perfect, He's asking you to trust Him. He's not waiting for you to prove yourself, He's waiting for you to rely on Him. Sometimes surrender happens in silence. It happens when you're on your knees saying, God, I can't do this anymore. That's not a failure. That's faith. Because faith isn't pretending you're strong. Faith is admitting you're not and trusting the one who is. Every tear you shed in surrender is a prayer heaven hears clearly. Every time you stop fighting in your own strength, God starts fighting for you. And the beauty of surrender is that it transforms your relationship with God. You no longer come to Him trying to earn His help. You come to Him simply as His child. You realize you don't have to prove your worth, because His love already proved it. You don't have to carry every burden, because He already promised to. So if you feel weak, don't hide it. If you feel broken, don't be ashamed. God can do more with your weakness than you could ever do with your strength. The cracks in your life are not failures, they're openings for His light to shine through. When you surrender, you shift from striving to resting, from worrying to trusting, from controlling to believing. You stop saying, I have to make this work, and start saying, God, have your way. And when that happens, peace begins to replace panic. Purpose begins to replace pressure. Because you finally realize that surrender is not the end of your story. It's the start of your strength. So stop trying to hold it all together. Let go. Let God take the weight you were never meant to carry. You'll find that the moment you release it, His strength will meet you right where your strength runs out. And you'll discover a peace and power that can only be found on the other side of surrender. Many people believe that when life gets hard, it must mean God has stepped away, that He's distant, silent, or uninterested. But the truth is the complete opposite. Your struggles are not proof that God has abandoned you. They are evidence that He's deeply involved in your life. When God is shaping a person for purpose, He uses pressure. When He's preparing someone for calling, He uses challenge. The very presence of the struggle is a sign that He's still working on you, molding you into who He designed you to be. Think about it, gold is never found shining in its final form. It's discovered in dirt, refined in fire, and purified through intense heat. Only then does it become valuable. The same is true for your soul. God doesn't leave you in the fire to destroy you. He keeps you there to refine you. If He didn't see worth in you, He wouldn't take the time to shape you. The fact that you're in the middle of a struggle means heaven still sees potential in you. When you pray and the answer doesn't come right away, when you do what's right and still face resistance, that doesn't mean God has forgotten you. It means He's teaching you how to stand when life doesn't make sense. God's silence is never absence. It's the space where your faith is invited to grow. You may not see what He's doing, but He's moving pieces behind the scenes, aligning things, building character, and strengthening your heart. Sometimes, the struggles God allows are His way of drawing you closer. When life is easy, we rarely seek Him deeply. But when everything falls apart, prayer becomes our lifeline, tears become worship, pain becomes the altar where we meet Him in ways we never could have in comfort. God's involvement isn't always felt as a blessing. Sometimes it's disguised as a burden. But make no mistake, He's still there, working through every broken moment. Look at the stories written in Scripture. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and wrongly imprisoned, yet God was with him through every step. Daniel was thrown into the lion's den, and that's exactly where God showed His power. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were thrown into the fiery furnace, but when the king looked inside, he saw 4 men, not 3. God was walking in the fire with them. That's what He does. He doesn't always keep us out of the fire, but He always gets in it with us. The proof of God's presence is not the absence of pain. It's the peace that holds you in the middle of it. It's the strength that appears when you should have fallen apart. It's the calm you feel when everything else is chaos. That's God. That's His involvement, unseen but undeniable. He may not remove the storm, but He'll steady you through it. He may not stop the battle, but He'll fight beside you in it. Every time you go through something painful, you have 2 choices: to see it as punishment or as preparation. The difference is perspective. Punishment ends with guilt. Preparation ends with growth. God's not punishing you. He's preparing you. He's training your hands for battle, your heart for compassion, and your faith for endurance. He's teaching you to trust Him, not because everything is good, but because He is good even when everything isn't. So don't let your pain convince you that God is far away. Let it remind you that He's close, closer than He's ever been. The very weight that feels unbearable may be the hand of God molding you, strengthening you, refining you. And one day, when the season of struggle passes, you'll look back and see that He was there all along. You'll realize that His fingerprints were on every detail, even the painful ones. Because God doesn't invest time in what He's done with. The fact that He's still refining you means He's not finished with you. The struggle is proof that you're still under construction, still being shaped by the hands of your Creator. So instead of asking, God, where are you? Start saying, God, thank you for not giving up on me. Because if you're still fighting, still growing, still breathing, it means He's still working. And that is the greatest proof of all, that He has never left your side. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that what feels like rejection from God is actually His redirection. We pray for certain doors to open, for specific dreams to come true. And when they don't, we assume God said no. But more often than not, His no is not the end of the story. It's a way of guiding you towards something far better than you could imagine. When God says no, it's not because He doesn't care, it's because He sees the entire picture, while we only see one small piece. You see, we live moment to moment. We make plans based on what we think is best right now. But God operates from eternity. He sees where each path leads, and sometimes the thing we're asking for would hurt us more than help us. Sometimes the opportunity we want would distract us from our destiny. Sometimes the person we're begging Him to keep in our lives is the very person He's trying to remove for our protection. His no is mercy disguised as disappointment. Think about how many times in your life you've looked back and said, "I'm so glad that didn't work out." At the time, it broke your heart. You cried, you questioned, you begged God to change His mind. But now you can see, if that door had opened, you would have missed something better. If that relationship had continued, it would have destroyed your peace. If that opportunity had gone through, it would have pulled you away from your purpose. God's no isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's His way of saying, "I have something better. Just trust me." But trusting that is not easy, because in the middle of unanswered prayers, it feels like silence. It feels like abandonment. You look at others who seem to be getting everything they ask for, and you wonder, why not me? Lord, you see people succeeding, relationships thriving, doors opening, and you're still waiting. But remember this, God's delay doesn't mean denial. His timing is not ours. Sometimes He withholds what you want because He's still preparing you to receive it. A blessing given too soon can become a burden. So when God makes you wait, it's because He's growing something inside you: patience, faith, maturity, and wisdom. Every no from God carries purpose. Moses wanted to enter the promised land, but God said no, because Moses had already completed his assignment. David wanted to build the temple, but God said no, because it was meant for Solomon. Paul wanted to remove the thorn in his flesh, but God said no, because that thorn kept him humble and dependent. Even Jesus in the garden said, "Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me." And heaven was silent. But that silence led to the greatest redemption story ever told. So maybe the no you're facing right now isn't a punishment. Maybe it's protection. Maybe it's direction. Maybe it's the loving hand of a father who refuses to give you less than his best. Because God's goal isn't to give you everything you want. It's to shape you into who you're meant to become. And sometimes becoming that person requires closed doors, unanswered prayers, and uncomfortable seasons. When God says no, don't let it crush your faith. Let it clarify your trust. You may not understand it now, but one day you'll see why He didn't allow certain things to happen. You'll look back and realize His no was actually Him saying, "I love you too much to let you settle." So instead of asking, "Why didn't it work out?" ask, "What are you protecting me from, Lord?" Instead of saying, "Why me?" say, "What are you preparing me for?" Because every no, every delay, and every closed door is a setup for something greater, something beyond what your mind can imagine. God's no is not rejection. It's redirection, protection, and preparation. It's Him steering you toward the right people, the right purpose, and the right moment. And when the time comes, and He finally says yes, you'll understand that every no along the way was leading you right to it. Then you'll see His fingerprints all over the journey and realize He was never withholding anything good from you. He was saving it for the right time. When you look back over your life, you'll notice something remarkable. Your greatest growth did not happen in the moments of comfort, but in the seasons of pain. It was never the easy days that shaped your faith, but the hard ones that forced you to your knees. You asked God for strength, and instead of giving it instantly, He gave you a reason to become strong. You asked for faith, and He allowed situations that tested everything you believed. You asked for patience, and He placed you in waiting rooms where nothing seemed to move. You asked for courage, and He sent you into battles you never thought you could face. You see, God's answers often come disguised as difficulties. His blessings are often wrapped in what looks like burdens. Every trial you have endured wasn't meant to destroy you, it was meant to prepare you. The pain that once made you cry is the same pain that gave you a deeper understanding of His grace. The disappointment that broke your heart was the very thing that redirected your steps to something greater. God is not ignoring your prayers, He's answering them in ways your flesh doesn't always recognize. He is less interested in giving you comfort and more interested in building your character. Because comfort makes us weak, but character makes us warriors. Sometimes we ask God to change our circumstances, and He chooses instead to change us through those circumstances. We say, "Lord, take away the storm," and He says, "I'll give you the strength to stand through it." We ask for peace, but He shows us that peace is not found in the absence of trouble. It's found in His presence during the trouble. Every struggle is an invitation to know Him more deeply, to trust Him more completely, and to love Him more sincerely. And one day, you'll see what He was doing all along. You'll look back and realize that those closed doors were actually divine protections. Those lonely nights were sacred appointments where He drew you closer. Those tears were the seeds that grew into wisdom and compassion. You'll understand that every trial was training, every delay was direction, every pain had purpose. So don't despise your struggles. They are not a sign that God has abandoned you. They are proof that He is working within you. The hand that wounds is the same hand that heals. The God who allows the storm is the same God who calms it. And when He's finished, you will emerge stronger, wiser, and more anchored in faith than ever before. Remember, this strength is not given, it's built. Faith is not born in peace, it's forged in fire. Hope doesn't grow in sunlight, it blossoms in the dark. So, when life gets hard, don't just ask God to take it away. Ask Him to help you see what He's doing through it, because the struggle you're in today is producing the strength you'll need tomorrow. And when you finally stand on the other side of that struggle, you'll realize it was never punishment. It was preparation.